And good evening, everybody, and welcome to We Believe Digital Studios, the weekly Sizzling in Mississippi program. We're really glad that you're here. You're joining us. We feel fortunate to be here in these studios. Lots of stuff going on at the We Believe Digital Studios. We're always looking to advertise your products and services, help you to create your own podcast shows, work with the graphics, everything involved. Do all kinds of filming and editing and production services here at We Believe Digital, an African-American owned and operated studio here in downtown Jackson. And my name is Chris Young, and alongside, as always, Miss Maati, Jone Primm. Good evening.
Good evening, Chris. How are you?
I'm rolling with it. Right. You know, it's Monday. Here we are again.
Indeed.
It seems like stuff is just going on. Sometimes it seems like it's just a minute before Monday night happens again, and sometimes it seems like a long time.
Right. A lot going on.
But we thank you for joining us. We do have a call-in number, 1-800-492-5186, or maybe you'd like to follow us in the chat and make comments in the chat. I thought to mention, I've often mention this Equal Justice Institute calendar. This is from the Equal Justice Institute is over in Montgomery, and the dedicated attorney Brian Stevenson is behind all that. The museums, the lynching museum, so they put out this calendar annually, and I keep a copy on the wall at home and in my office, and just reviewing the last couple of days. You know, yesterday in 1963, during a one-man civil rights march in Jackson, Mississippi, William L. Moore is found dead on Highway 11 near is it Attala? Does that ring him? Attala, Alabama. So 1963, and then today, wouldn't that be 146 years ago, 1877, federal troops withdraw from Louisiana, marking the end of Reconstruction. 146 years ago, the end of Reconstruction.
Yes.
So just a little bit of a
new kind of terrorism and a new type of captivity.
Terrorism 3.0 or 4.0.
You know what I mean? Hard to count, but we're talking about a situation of returning people to a system so near to captivity that, you know, you can just call it neo-captivity, neo-enslavement, peonage.
Yeah.
That's what occurred.
And even in modern days today, I mean, you starve people of economic opportunity, chance to advance.
Right.
You know, it's just another form of captivity.
Right. Must maintain the status quo.
Oh yeah, white power.
Yeah.
So we've got a few things going on. We started in Lexington, Mississippi tonight. You know, it was just last summer when Lexington, Mississippi was in the news, Maati. We hadn't started the show at that time, but certainly we were aware of what was going on with that. And we see a report today or yesterday from Jerry Mitchell, Mississippi Center for Investigative Reporting, which is now merged in with Mississippi Today newspaper. He has a long history of trying a white man trying to tell the truth about issues that have gone on and continue to go on in Mississippi. And you have this man, Malcolm Stewart, sued the Lexington Police Department alleging violence and racism. And then he's claiming now that he was assaulted by a police officer in retaliation for that litigation.
Yes.
Now, something like that could never happen in Mississippi, right?
Something like that happens often in Mississippi. In fact, you know, Lexington is a different type of place. We're talking about the Delta, but we're also talking about the home of Eddie Knoll. And Eddie Knoll is a man who, in 1955, the same year as Emmett Till, he shot and killed 3 white men. He's black.
Okay.
And he was on the run for a very long time until some black educators convinced him to turn himself in.
Okay.
When he did, he went to trial, and he went to trial with a white judge. And the judge decided that any black man who would shoot and kill 3 white men in Mississippi would have to be crazy. And so he confined him to Whitfield Mental Hospital. And Eddie Knoll stayed there for a number of years. And eventually he got out, and he moved to Indiana and lived out the rest of his years. He is the son of Edward Knoll, former governor of Mississippi.
Really?
He's love child of him. And people figure that that had a lot to do with the outcome of his trial.
Keeping it low key.
Keeping it low key.
Off to the mental institution.
Right. And they don't talk about Eddie Knoll. We talk about Emmett Till, same year. But they don't talk about Eddie Knoll because it might give people ideas.
Ideas like there were lots of white people in positions of power.
Right.
That had children with black women.
Well, the nighttime integration, as it's often called, is something that is very prolific in Mississippi and through the South. People like Jesse Helms have black children.
Sure.
But in terms of responding, violent response to oppression is something that the powers that be did not want to encourage black people to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Lexington, outside of that, it is not a liberal place.
No.
And so we see how the police department reacts when someone who is not connected to the powers that be, how they handle him. So he files a report and a complaint against the police department. And what does the police department do? They physically assault him.
And then they interviewed, according to the article, they interviewed the new police chief. Remember, the last police chief was relieved, fired the next day after making these god-awful comments.
Right, yeah.
That guy's name was Sam Dobbins.
Yeah.
And he's talking about...
I'll tell you what, I'll say it right here. Let's see. The Mississippi Today obtained a recording of a white law enforcement officer bragging about killing 13 people in the line of duty, saying, "I shot that nigga 119 times, okay?" The voice was then Chief Sam Dobbins, who was fired the next day by the city council.
Thank you.
It had a bad visual on that, to have the chief of police
Right.
admitting
Right.
to homicide, and it seemed so he was bragging about it. So the city council of Lexington decided that they would just let him go.
I wonder if that former Chief Sam Dobbins is employed anywhere today in law enforcement, because that was last summer.
Yeah, well, I'm
9
sure
months ago.
Yeah, but if he chose to do it, I mean, because there's no punishment for what he did. There's no questioning. There's no follow-up investigation on killing 13 people and shooting someone 119 times. None of that's reported on.
And in the article too, the current chief, Charles Henderson, who's been on the job now for less than a year up there,
Yeah.
he said that Stewart, the man that filed the lawsuit against the Lexington Police Department, he said he was arrested on April 16th for aggravated assault on an officer, failure to comply, and disturbing the peace. And then there's this quote, "There are certain people who make these accusations every time they're arrested," says the chief. Certain people.
Wow, I wonder who those are.
Wonder who certain peoples are.
I wonder, do they look more like me than you? I'm kind of thinking they do.
I'm kind of thinking they do also. So, yeah, just Yeah, what to do? I mean, it's just, and when you have it won't surprise me if this makes it into the national news very shortly. Certainly, the episode last summer did.
Yeah.
And you have this stuff go on. I drove through Lexington one time on my way up to taking a circuitous route on my way up to Clark. Well, first at a pit stop at Parchman.
Okay.
Just like a fool to sit across the street in the parking lot from the entrance to Parchman and just stare at the sign. I just do some stuff, You
can.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
I've got that freedom.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. I don't. Yeah.
You don't think they let you sit there and stare at them?
No, I'm almost certain that they would not. Yeah.
I'll take you with me next time I go.
You have to drag me with
We'll
you.
test the theory.
Right.
Yeah, so we have to keep an eye on Lexington, Mississippi Police Department, seeing what's going on over there. We've still got this next one. Probably take us a minute. Or do you want to? Should we talk a little bit about this?
Sure.
I mean, the two major. Well, one of them, an anchor, Don Lemon
Right.
at CNN, and then the other one. I really don't want to use the word anchor. Cult of personality, Tucker Carlson.
Oh, yeah, very popular.
Very popular. They're leading their biggest star.
Yeah, yeah.
So Fox News parted ways with him today.
Right, they did.
The first thought I had is that he will not be without work.
Oh, no. Oh, he's going to do quite well.
Maybe he'll become the next Alex Jones or something like that.
He will have, I think, that type of popularity if he wants it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So apparently Lemon, and there's always been people hating on Don Lemon. There's been some times I've seen and heard things, but that's just the case with everybody.
Right.
But I just feel like he was kind of held to a different standard after all. And it's ironic too, because remember when what was it, 80 or 81 when CNN was founded?
Right.
Who did they have in the anchor chair?
Oh,
Bernard Shaw.
Right. Yes, from Chicago.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
And be sitting there reading.
Yeah.
The stories.
Sure.
And so ironic, that network started with a black man in the evening anchor spot.
Right.
And now Lemon apparently said something about Nikki Haley. Remember the one that got all the applause for taking down a Confederate flag in South Carolina?
Right. After
that was her idea.
After 9 people were massacred in the old Mother Emanuel Church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Charleston.
While
praying.
Yeah. During the midweek prayer and Bible
Dylan
study.
Roof.
Dylan Roof was the assailant and the monster. Yeah.
And then she was picked up by former President Trump and became the United Nations ambassador.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't stay in that too long, I don't think.
Right.
18 months or 2 years,
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's typical.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Lemon had indicated that he thought she was past her prime. And that seemed to bother not only his co-hosts
Right.
on the show.
Yeah.
They were asking, do you mean like for having children or for becoming a potential presidential candidate? What do you mean?
Right.
And
he didn't handle that well.
yeah.
Plus,
And then he did apologize for it.
yeah, well, but see, that never works out.
Yeah.
The apology, it's not going to be sufficient enough for him
Mm-hmm.
to go on and people to forget that it's not going to happen. It was unfortunate, and then of course, and he made it where it wasn't just about Nikki Haley, but women in general.
Yeah.
And he said, well, a woman's prime is when she's in her 20s, 30s, and perhaps her 40s.
Yeah.
And really what he was responding to was Nikki Haley saying that the politicians, our elder politicians, need to be tested to make sure that they're competent. Mentally competent, and that their health status is well enough for them to work in the positions that they occupy. However, that response was so general and one-sided, saying women are this way. So, in the age of Me Too, you have to expect that there's going to be a lot of blowback. And it was more than he could handle, and it was basically the cherry on the cake that wasn't good anyway. He had been moved from a nighttime show, his own show, to sharing a desk with two women. Yeah. And it was just adversarial. It just never worked.
I didn't watch it very often, but the times I did, it didn't look all warm and fuzzy.
It was painful.
Yeah.
It was almost painful to watch, and CNN has taken on the idea that they should be a more centrist network, and as a result of that, Don Lemon being too far, they felt to the left. That wasn't going to work.
Wasn't trying to fit their new model.
Yeah, and he didn't. I mean, he really just didn't. He was married to a man, and it was an interracial marriage, and he was highly critical of Donald Trump, and so.
Well, then on the other side with Fox News, letting their star Tucker Carlson go. He was critical of Trump, and that all came out in that preparations for that defamation lawsuit, Dominion voting and everything, which they ended up settling at the last second. Yeah. When they had the jurors sitting in the courtroom. Yeah. They
But that amount was just so high, the settlement amount. Like, what was it, $780 million?
Crazy amount.
Yeah, that's, ouch. That's
the initial lawsuit was $1.6 billion.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, still, that's really hard.
Right.
That's a hard check for anybody to write. So, there's going to be casualties. But with him, I think that Tucker Carlson will do quite well. He may even do better than he was doing at Fox.
Yeah.
This allows him to have his own media company.
Well, fair enough. I guess that's the way that rolls. Yeah. I don't watch as much. There was a time in my life where I watched CNN all the time. Never cared for Fox when that came around.
Okay.
Used to joke with people that I wouldn't allow it in my home. And okay. At the time I was, it was just me and my daughter. So, and then MSNBC, and I thought, well, maybe there's some middle ground here, whatever. So I probably watch that more than I do, CNN or, and then there's a new,
News Network. No, News Nation.
News Nation.
Right. I haven't been able to do that one either.
No. Well, okay. So what we've got coming up is more talk about HB 1020, which has now been signed into law by our illustrious governor, Tate Reeves, and we've got a lot of information to share with you on that. So we'll just wrap up this first segment. We'll dip out for a couple of commercials, and we'll be right back with you.
Looking for the hottest content in the city of Jackson and surrounding areas? Check out WeBelieveDigital.com. Also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We Believe Digital Podcast is here for all your podcasting needs.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection. giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
SocratesGarrettENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. SocratesGarrettENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.Dot grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
And welcome back to Sizzling in Mississippi. We're so glad you're joining us tonight. We've been talking about this Lexington, Mississippi Police Department. It seemed like there's an awful lot of racist behavior up there. And then we talked a little bit about these news anchors being fired, the Tucker Carlson and the Don Lemon. And now we're going to shift into HB 1020 being signed into law. And as promised, immediately, it can't know for sure if the ink was dry yet when Governor Tate Reeves signed this HB 1020 into law. But the NAACP filed a suit alleging that this law violates the U.S. Constitution.
Yes.
So, just in a nutshell, and I think we'd like to share with you the NAACP statement because it is a very holistic viewpoint of the whole thing. But in a nutshell, Jackson will become the only city in the state of Mississippi that has a separate judicial and a separate law enforcement district created. It was signed into law on Friday, February 21st. The lawsuit went out April 21st also. So nowhere else is this happening in the state. And the Capital Complex Improvement District, or the CCID, has been, with this legislation, expanded from 8.7 square miles to 17.5 square miles, where approximately, which is going to include the part of Jackson, Mississippi, where approximately 50% of the white population is. So interesting. So you have a city with a white population of roughly 15%, but they expand the new separate policing and judicial district to the area of the city that has about half the white people that are here living in it.
And the most affluent.
And the most affluent.
Right, the most affluent white people, where they live, and it's like a purge without actually having to get rid of Jackson City Council and Jackson's mayor. You just usurp
You
their
just
power.
move in and take the power.
Right, yeah. Just pull the rug right out from under them in terms of the authority that they are supposed to have.
And our Mayor Lumumba, early on in this process, went over there and watched as they were talking about the issue.
Right.
This HB 1020 started as a 1,040-page bill.
Wow.
And in the end, it's much, much shorter than that, but in many ways just as lethal as when it started. And Mayor Lumumba commented that the only thing he saw missing over there in the gallery was the hoods.
Right.
He said they must have left them hanging in the closet.
Right. I thought he said in the trunks.
In the trunks.
Right. They brought him to Jackson. They just didn't put him on for the, yeah.
So let's share with the people. Why don't I take this is the statement, and let's just try and today the NAACP Office of General Counsel and Covington and Burling LLP filed a lawsuit, U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Mississippi, on behalf of the NAACP, State Conference, Jackson Branch, and a number of Jackson residents and civil rights activists to challenge two Mississippi statutes. The council team includes former Attorney General of the United States Eric H. Holder Jr., senior counsel at Covington Burling. And lawmakers and Jackson residents have opposed both bills throughout the session, citing outside attempts to increase policing without adequate training, silence dissent from Jackson residents, and strip residents of their voting power to elect judges and district attorney who serve in their interests. So under this scheme, under this law, the Chief Justice of the Mississippi Supreme Court will select the judges, and then the Attorney General, the Lynn Fitch, she will pick the district attorneys.
Yes.
And maybe public defenders has got to work both sides of that, I guess.
They haven't stated, anything about that. I'm wondering about that. Yeah. We have a public defender's office now, and of course they're overworked, and are they going to be taking those cases, or will there be a separate public defender's office?
Yeah. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing a word about that.
Right.
I don't remember seeing those two words in the legislation.
Okay, yeah. And that relates to the people who utilize that, who majority are going to be black and majority are going to be economically impoverished because they can't afford their own private legal counsel. And so maybe they will just heap these cases on to the public defender's office in Jackson as a
Wouldn't that be something?
Wow.
So they say, they use the word state takeover here in Jackson, and it's not the first attempt. There's still litigation going on for years and years and years about the Jackson airport. There was an attempt made to take over Jackson public schools. Anything that's under black control is a potential target for these white Republican lawmakers. So, they said. That the bill, a large swath of Jackson would be primarily under state-run Capitol Police. The bill would significantly restrict Mississippi residents to protest. You got to get an approval now to protest or hold demonstrations in and around any buildings that are considered state property. So the idea of surrounding the sidewalks around the Capitol, you got to get permission from those people.
Right.
Department of Public Safety.
Yes.
And the Capitol Police.
Right.
In order to have a protest or a demonstration. So, and then the second part of the bill, the new court with unelected judges appointed by the Supreme Court, which have the ability here to determine all preliminary matters and criminal matters within the district. Yeah. The bill also continues a court packing plan by appointing unelected circuit judges to the 7th Circuit Court District in Hinds County. So NAACP President and CEO Derek Johnson releases the following statement. Would you like that last paragraph there?
Okay. As our country continues to face the reality and consequences of our broken law enforcement and criminal justice systems, passing legislation to increase policing, install undemocratically appointed judges, and infringe on the constitutional right to protest is simultaneously irresponsible and dangerous. To be clear, this legislation is nothing new. The people of Jackson have been silenced and have faced years of discriminatory disinvestment and neglect from the state government, which led to the major water crisis they are still dealing with to this day. If elected officials in Mississippi want to help address the results of their negligence and improve.
Then we've got a caller when you finish up.
Okay. And improve the lives of Jackson residents, they should start with completing improvements to Jackson's water system, not undermining the constitutional rights of their citizens.
Wow. So that's the statement from Derek Johnson. And I understand we have a caller. Hello, sir. Caller, you're on. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. You had a comment or question?
Yes, real quick. I'm still trying to study the city and the dynamics of how things work here. But from what I've heard from people in general conversation, I'm starting to wonder if the creation of that new police force has anything to do with the way the citizens of Jackson tend to treat the outskirt cities. And what I mean is, the young men I see with their guns and their waist at the grocery stores or at the gas stations, I don't see that when I go to Canton or Clinton. I don't see it in Madison, but I see it in Jackson. So I'm wondering, is what's happening there is the respect that they seem to have in other outskirt cities seems to be lacking in the capital city. And are they creating that kind of as a way to say, stay away from this area as you stay away from those other cities?
Yes, thank you very much for your call. It's a great question.
Thank you. Y'all have a great day.
And thanks for following We Believe Digital. And it does make you think, Maati. Right away, my mind goes to the levels of black population in the suburbs.
Right.
So,
Which are a lot lower. Yeah.
Vastly lower.
Yeah.
And so, the idea, is this meant to, to make us more like outlying cities, more like suburbs, more like the bedroom communities?
I don't know how it can, to be honest, because there's other legislation that's come through that affords gun owners and gun sellers more leniency in terms of gun sellers do no longer have to record their gun sales, to whom they're selling their guns. They don't have to record that. In fact, it will become illegal for them to keep those type of records.
It is interesting, too, when you watch the Capitol Police, because I see them all the time. It's absolutely common to see two vehicles, one right behind the other, and sometimes three in tandem, running through downtown and all the way over as far as Bailey Avenue, the western boundary.
Okay.
It's a rare time when I just see one Capitol Police vehicle making rounds by itself.
Wow.
It's they tend to go in tandem. I don't know what that's all about.
I don't see that.
Yeah. You don't see that down Fair Street?
No.
Yeah.
If I see one Capitol Police vehicle, it's just one. I don't see them every day.
Huh.
I'm not sure if I see them every week.
I wonder if that's, and I've also seen a lot of unmarked vehicles over on Bailey Avenue.
Yeah. I haven't seen those either.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not getting the coverage that the wider areas are getting.
And right around the Capitol building itself.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I live really close to there, so maybe that influences,
Right.
maybe I'm just seeing
the
that more.
attention that you're getting.
So time will tell, and the caller may be right on, maybe right on the money, and that's what's going on. I think it's just hard for us to tell right now. To me, it just seems like apples and oranges at this stage of the game, and it doesn't seem like you could make a fair comparison there.
Well, I know one thing. I think that the NAACP and the protests that we're getting now should have started before, when this was initially created. I think it's problematic. I think we waited too long to respond to this. When it was an 8-mile radius, we should have responded then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing, too, I saw on Twitter earlier today, they call this surprise legislation. So when legislation comes up, I mean, some people believe that bills shouldn't be submitted unless they're reflecting the will of the people. So I don't know if that's a true statement or not, because here you are electing a representative or a senator,
Yeah.
and they're supposed to carry your water.
Right.
But the ones that submitted these bills, they're from out of the area.
Right. And I don't think that their constituents are so concerned about what's going on in Jackson.
I don't know if they care at all.
At all. Right. I haven't seen any attention.
I don't know if they were down here handing out water.
No.
Yeah, it's a tough situation to grasp. But again, the NAACP has filed suit, and they promised this at a press conference rally in January or early February on the South Capitol steps. I remember Rob McDuff from Mississippi Center for Justice saying, go ahead, it's unconstitutional. Here's why it's unconstitutional. But if you go ahead and sign it into law, and all I got to tell you is simple: see you in court. And here we go. Yeah. So it wouldn't surprise me if Mississippi Center for Justice joins with this lawsuit.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's been somewhat, not really gradual, but with the initial phase being one thing, then turning it into from 8 miles into 17 miles. At first, because there wasn't the resistance, they weren't talking about non-elected judges, non-elected district attorneys. It wasn't that speech. So,
another thing that gets me about this, Maati, is the comments that I've seen about apparently there are 2 members of the Legislative Black Caucus, the Hinds County.
Okay.
Apparently, as reported, but I don't see the names of who they were. But you see these comments that, in other words, one of the points up front was, well, these people that introduced the bills, they never came and talked to our people.
Right.
It's going to affect our people, but they never came and talked to our representatives and explained and asked for input, or can you work with me on this? God, we got a crime problem. We got courts backed up. Is there anything we can do to help? Let's write some legislation together.
Right.
No, it wasn't that.
Right.
It was just raw white nationalist power from out of the area.
Plantation politics.
Right. But even if they did, and again, I haven't seen any names, but even if they did talk to, it's still, why is that even being mentioned? The bottom line is you're not collaborating with your brethren legislators down here.
Right. No, they're not collaborating with anyone. We've had town hall meetings ad nauseum all over the city, and they've never shown up to any of these to hear what the people are saying, and to really look for solutions, because really the solution to crime is not policing. It's social programs that uplift people into a higher quality of life. A better way of living. And so if you're so concerned about this, then you would be concerned about education. You'd be concerned about the infrastructure of Jackson. You'd be concerned about the water.
Would you think it's fair to say, along those lines, that residents in Madison, Clinton, Pearl have a higher quality of life? They have better resources in those areas than we do in Jackson? Is that fair to say?
Yes, it is.
So they invest?
Well, it's not them. I mean, they're taking money out of Jackson in order to have the lifestyle and quality of life that they have. That money is being siphoned off of Jackson.
But so many people live out there, but then come and draw their paycheck here.
Sure they do.
And then they bring that paycheck back over there.
Right. And then just with allocations, with budgeting, these suburbs are getting money from Jackson. And you can tell, you go out to Madison or Clinton, especially Madison, all the sidewalks and it's so nice and clean. The roads are well paved, and they're not facing the issues that we're facing. And we're facing this largely because of issues of poverty, issues of lack of getting our fair share. We're not getting that. And as soon as it looks like we're about to get some money for improving the water quality, then here they come to take it.
Here they come to take it.
To steal it.
Yeah.
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 So, it's...
And at a time when we have supposedly this surplus budget.
Right. Yeah. It's just grand theft.
But the idea that a black controlled city
Yes.
would be getting hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right.
You can't abide that.
No.
Got to dive in and take.
Yeah.
Taking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sad commentary. So we're going to obviously be watching this lawsuit closely, see what happens with that. I'm going to see if I can't get a closer look of who's added on, who's joined rather the lawsuit. And we've come up on the end of our second segment, so we're going to stop for a couple of commercials, and then we'll be right back for our final segment.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, keepers of the knowledge for people who speak the truth since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippiLink.com and click on Home Delivery.
And welcome back to Sizzling in Mississippi. We're glad you're joining us. Just starting off on our final segment now, and we're moving down to South Florida. But I don't know if this is all about South Florida. Certainly Kansas City, Pennsylvania, Nashville, but in South Florida in Broward County. Man was shot at the car that had driven onto his property, an Instacart. That must be something like a DoorDash or
Right.
So an Instacart driver got lost trying to drop off an order. That's a crime. Getting lost or trying to drop off an order, and they wound up. Now, fortunately, they didn't get killed. The driver and I believe his girlfriend. That could have been the problem. He could have got distracted when they were talking and stuff. Mm-hmm. But anyway, leaving the car with bullet holes and a flat tire. The shooter was a Broward County homeowner, told the police he opened fire because the vehicle ran over his foot. No one was struck by gunfire, but state prosecutor has ordered an investigation into the incident, the latest in a spate of similar shootings across the nation in which people have accidentally turned to the wrong property, rang the wrong doorbell, gotten in the wrong vehicle. In one case, a 20-year-old woman fatally shot after the vehicle she was in took a wrong turn into an upstate New York driveway. Mm. So this stuff is going on more and more. Like, if you think you have a car coming up your driveway that you don't recognize or whatever, does that mean you go grab your gun, or does that mean you call the police?
You should call the police. You should call the police.
It seems to me that more and more people are just the heck with the police. They're just taking up arms.
Yes.
This castle doctrine, this stand your ground, has to be a big part of it.
Right.
It's another one of those ALEC-generated bills that caught on in many, many, many states, including Florida, of course.
Right.
Trayvon.
Right. Yeah.
And so it just part of a broader picture. And you mentioned earlier, and we had talked earlier today on the phone about these gun registries and the governor signing a bill to make sure that there's no kind of gun registries.
Right. But I'm wondering about, let's say a person purchases a gun, right? So there's no record, and that gun is used in a crime. If ballistics are done, and that gun matches another ballistics report of another crime, what's going to happen to the current gun owner? How can he or she prove that that they did not own the gun at that time?
When the gun had changed hands.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
How do you prove that?
Yeah.
And if you can't prove it, then are you going to be responsible for that previous crime?
Yeah, because it's not like they have a, like with automobiles, they have the Carfax.
Sure.
It's supposed to tell you a little something.
Right.
I don't know if it does or not, but it's supposed to tell you a little. They don't have that when if you do a private sale of a weapon or what have you.
Right.
But there is records kept when somebody goes into an authorized gun store.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Licensed to do business in the state selling firearms.
Right.
Because of the background check. So there's records kept in there, but that stuff doesn't apply, I don't think, over at these gun shows that they have at or anything that goes on privately. Yeah. There's no records kept.
Right.
And this law wants to make sure it stays that way.
Right. It's terrifying to think of the consequences.
You get this vibe of returning to the wild, wild west, especially with these open carry.
Right.
And
no permit.
Or no permit or permitted and open carry but the idea of people walking around with guns, and the only people I ever want to see with guns on their waist is law enforcement.
Right.
And some of them right.
Yeah, I'm a little leery of that.
Yes. Yeah, so it's just I just think it's part. I just think, Maati, that it's part of something broader going on in this country. I mean, we talk about it all the time. We might not think about it right now in this context, but I think it fits in with this broader things that are going on in the country, which I would call, a sort of a white nationalist tightening up. These people are scared to death of this census.
Yeah.
The concept, the browning of America.
Right.
And so you got a lot of white folks that are terrified of this reduction in white population in America because they think this is their country.
Right.
Then you got some other people. Well, they're troubled by it. They're not like vehement crazy about it, but they're troubled by it.
Sure.
And yet the melting pot. And where do their ancestors come from? And you got this white nationalist agenda, and some of the things on there, reducing regulations, reducing corporate tax rates and individual tax rates, loosening environmental regulations, tightening voter registration rules.
Right.
They did that this year in Mississippi.
Yes. Right.
He already signed that bill.
Right.
And then there's the weakening of labor unions, tightening of immigration rules.
Right.
But yet everybody here's an immigrant.
Right.
In the context, you know what I mean. Right. So
most people are not from here.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then opposing any kind of gun control. I mean, you had the House pass by a very narrow majority, an initiative, gun safety regulation. The Senate won't take it up.
Yeah.
They say the votes are just not there.
Yeah.
So in this case, you get to have 50 people stonewalling the whole country.
Yes.
As now, gun deaths are the leading cause of deaths for children in our country. But you have 50 people, senators, that have that embedded power to resist that.
Right.
As the kids are dying. as the young people are dying. And our I know I'm not telling you anything. You know, our gun death rate, the highest in the world.
Yes.
Like our incarceration rate,
Right.
highest in the world.
Right. And Mississippi has the highest homicide rate in the country.
And the last thing on the list is, you know, the restricting telling U.S. history.
Yes.
As it is.
Right, critical race theory ban, that the legislation doesn't mention the words critical race theory.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just broadens the concept
Yeah.
such that basically teaching a fully expanded history and speaking truth to what actually happened is banned. That's prohibited.
So I see all those things as part of a nationwide agenda, and it's a fear-based agenda. I don't understand why people can't embrace diversity. I don't understand why people always want to look for differences. That's the key thing with white supremacy, is that white supremacists they focus on difference. So if you don't look like them, then you're different, and then you're inferior. And this is just fiction, but this is what these folks believe.
Well, that's their program. That's
their program.
That's what they're promoting.
And so much of it we see here in Mississippi all the time. HB 1020 being just another example of it.
Yeah.
This month, April being Confederate Heritage Month,
right,
declared by the governor, who's absolutely unwilling to designate a Black History Month. Not willing to do that.
Right. It's been around since 1926, but this particular Confederate History Month is a new concept, just a few years old.
Mm-hmm.
Started in Virginia, and Mississippi quickly picked it up.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was during Haley Barbour's administration. Yeah, so not old at all.
The real governor of Mississippi.
Yeah. True
statement. Yeah. So where do we go by that? I mean, where do we go from that? When you see when you see this people either not trusting the law enforcement to address their issues that come up, to provide the service that their tax dollars pay them to provide, or is it just this mindset that's settled in at, I just believe, a deeper level than it was, say, even 10 years ago, where no, by God, I'm gonna handle my business.
Yeah. Well, we just have right now, like, the politics of extremism.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's extreme right or extreme left, it's just everything is at the borders, at the margins of everything, and it's squeezing the heck out of the middle. You know, so there's no sense of coming together and negotiating and compromising to find appropriate measures that should be taken, and eliminating extremes that deny so many people of rights. It's not doing that. We have a supermajority of Republicans in the state legislature, and so never do they ever have to walk across the aisle. It's not necessary.
And they know that.
Yeah, and they can completely ignore, really, the majority of the citizens of Mississippi.
Isn't that a metaphor?
Yeah.
Isn't that a metaphor?
Yeah. We can go right back to 1955.
That's what we have.
Yeah.
Then that's what we elect.
Yep. That's what we have, and that's what we've always had here.
Wow. And I mentioned ALEC before, and so many of these bills, including the Castle Doctrine, so many of these bills are generated in Washington, D.C. at the American Legislative American Legislative Exchange Council. And the company they've been around for about 50 years, and there's an article be coming out later this week in the Mississippi Link that goes into this deeper, but it's like a bill mill. They create these bills,
Right.
They create these templates. Their members are state legislators, like here in Mississippi. Philip Gunn has been a longtime ALEC member and 2020 national chair for ALEC. Then you got Josh Harkins, who is in on one of these takeover bills, and then you have the Becky Curry, another one. And on her ALEC bio webpage, you still see the stars and bars. Of course, she was a firm no vote on changing the flag.
Yes.
But that's, so on a public website. Now we're paying her a salary,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Don't the taxpayers pay her salary?
Yes. Doesn't matter.
But she's
though.
got a bio on
Yeah.
the ALEC webpage that's still got the old flag on it.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to call her, write her a letter.
Well, you could, but if she puts a new flag up, what difference is it going to make?
No, you're not going to. But just the idea is something that's so simple like that. I mean, it just.
Yeah, but the
I
new
hear
flag
you.
is, and for me, the new flag isn't any better than the old.
I know we've talked about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Fortunately, it is for lots and lots of people, but certainly
But-
there's people that it's not.
Well, for people who haven't sat and studied,
Yeah.
what does the magnolia flower actually symbolize? And then once you get that, then you're looking at the old flag again.
For me, and I do totally hear you. And for me, that even if there's ugliness attached to that, hopefully, I don't know, and God knows I'm not in your shoes, but hopefully it's less oppressive somehow, some way than those stars and bars were.
Well,
That's
if
my
you look
only
at
hope.
if you look at the south side of the state capitol, right?
Yeah.
What monument?
Oh, I know it.
It's a monument to white Confederate womanhood.
You got to walk all around. You
Yeah.
can't get up there
It's
without
huge.
running into it.
It's
Yeah,
huge.
Yeah.
It's as large as this room is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just because you don't have men on the flag or any symbolism to men, it
Right.
doesn't really mean anything
Right.
to me. You still have that magnolia flower, which is the symbol for white Confederate womanhood.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, so, and lo and behold, in researching this ALEC, their board of directors. I always learn a few things when you look at a company website and you see the board of directors. 23 people on the board of directors. Not one person of color on the board of directors. And the bills that they spit out are taken up 90% by Republicans, 10% by Democrats. About 50% of the language of the bills that they create in Washington, D.C., and then send to places like Oklahoma and Mississippi and Alabama, about 50% of the time, the original language that was created in Washington, D.C. follows it all the way to bill passage.
Yeah.
These guys put no effort whatsoever into it.
Yeah.
They just take
Just
it
passing through.
because
Yeah.
that's the agenda.
Yes.
That's part of the agenda.
Yes, it is.
So, story coming out on that in this week's Mississippi Link newspaper. Maati, we're starting to run out of things for this episode.
Okay.
Anything else on your mind?
I'm just exhausted of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fatiguing.
Yes. Yeah.
Never ending.
Never ending. Still fighting, but fatiguing at times.
I got to write another letter to the Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. He's up for re-election,
Yeah.
and I've written him 2 letters,
Okay.
and one of them was a joint letter to him and Gunn.
Okay.
But Gunn is not seeking re-election, so good riddance to
Yeah.
Gunn. But I got to write a letter to Delbert Hosemann because I just would like him to provide me with a list, say 5 items that he can think of from his time in public office that have contributed in a meaningful way to black advancement in the blackest city in America? That's what I want to ask him.
That's an easy answer.
We'll find out.
Oh.
You think I'll get a reply this time?
Probably not, but I mean, it's even
If I
the
tell him
absence.
I know you,
Right.
hey,
But-
let's invite him on the show.
Sure, but here's the thing. I mean, the absence of a response is equal to the response itself, which is nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. If he had something, he'd write it down and give it to you.
Would you like me to invite him on the show?
That's fine with me.
What's the worst thing that can happen? He shows up.
I don't think he will.
Any chat comments, Ariel?
No, you're good right now.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for a great show.
Thank you.
I love it when we get to share things back and forth. I do so hear you on that flag,
Yeah.
and I can't possibly see how you see that exactly, but I really can try to understand that, and I appreciate you reinforcing that.
Okay.
It's not the first time we've talked about that,
No, not at all.
but the truth doesn't change for you on that.
No, it doesn't. It still stinks.
I've been wearing a lapel pin sometimes with the flag on it, just to, like some sort of example of change is what I think I'm doing when I wear that on my coat.
Yeah, you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you were surrounded by the Klan, they wouldn't take it off of your lapel.
They would not. They would not. They would not. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, folks, for joining us this evening. We're here every Monday evening at 6:30. We look forward to hearing from you and getting calls in like we did tonight. We really cherish that. We want to grow the program. We think we're onto something a little unique here. Where else do you see a black person and a white person working together, sharing their black woman especially, and a white man sharing their views on each other, talking about issues that are keeping this state last in everything. So we think we're onto something, and we open to your feedback at any time. We'd love to hear from you. So hope you have a great week out there. Hang in there the best you can. Take care of those around you, and be sure to stay safe.